Hey, what's up, everyone? So, in this video, I want to cover how to drive the maximum amount of leads and conversion with data. Okay. And so, specifically, this is how we drive leads to the chat, right? And so, this is going to be how we can actually measure and get better at driving leads into the chat and meaning, basically getting people to DM us, right? And so, one of the biggest things is like not all leads are equal, right? So, just because I can drive a bunch of leads doesn't mean that all of those leads are good, right? So, the whole purpose of this is to make sure to learn how we can fine tune the copy so we can drive a waterfall of highly qualified leads, not just any leads, right? And then not all leads are created equal. So if you're getting leads that aren't purchasing from you, that means your messaging is off, which is what we want to handle here. Waterfall of leads, but no sales is no bueno, right? So I want to make sure to fix that. So that's what we're going to go right into here. And really the first way to kind of start understanding is like starting to understand the role of like social media metrics, right? And so there's kind of four metrics that we really look at, right? We have likes, comments, shares, and replies. So those are the three things that we can really look at for all of this stuff. And so obviously social media algorithms are pretty complex. I'm not going to go into crazy detail and like every detail because it's not like I know all the details anyway, if I'm being 100% honest. What I've learned and what I've found is just based on experience, right? Meaning that we posted, we looked at the data, it performed better, we made sales. It didn't perform good, we didn't make sales, right? And so I was doing this for a very, very long time, and that's what I do today for my Done For You clients still. And so my experience in writing copy for personal brands like Les Brown, Jay Shetty, Jason Capital, this is what I've really found to be true, okay? And so I want to break down the metrics and kind of what they mean. So the number of likes. Basically, the number of likes correlates directly with, did I capture the reader's attention, and is this content actually interesting? Right? So high number of likes usually indicates that we are successful stopping the scroll, right? So I look at likes like stopping the scroll, meaning like I'm scrolling on social media, doing my thing, right? Or whoever the lead is, right? They're scrolling on social media, they're going to stop on our post and read it, right? And so if they actually like that post, that means that we did a good job, right? But if it's a low number of likes, that usually means that we didn't do a good job stopping the scroll, right? Low interest in the topic. So that's how we can kind of dissect that part. Right. The next part is like the number of comments, right? So is the reader engaged with the content or was it compelling enough to start a conversation, right? So the number of comments is directly correlated to how engaged it was. And then is it actually compelling or is the information that we're talking about compelling? So high number of comments usually indicates the content was interesting enough, right? And then a low number of comments indicates the content was maybe interesting, but didn't capture enough interest to get high engagement. So it's probably like a low segment of the audience. So maybe not that interesting, right? So I use comments to tell me like, is this actually a topic that people care about? Right. And then shares, right? Did the reader, watcher find this good enough to share to a friend, right? So the number of shares are important. A high number of shares usually means that the video has viral component to it, right? Or like viral potential. And then a low number of shares usually means that the piece of content like wasn't that interesting or has low viral potential, right? And so like number of shares can also be correlated with interest in the topic too, because if a friend wouldn't share it then to someone else because they thought the information was dope, then I don't think that that's a good piece of content, right? And so we want to keep on iterating there to be able to increase number of shares. And then number of replies, right? So number of replies to me directly correlates to buying signals, right? And so a high number of replies directly from a post would mean that there's high buying signals, right? People are like, oh man, like I'm really interested in this, I really want it, right? And then a low number of replies usually means that the piece of content, it might have been interesting, but not enough to get people to reach out and engage, right? It might have been like, cool, that's a cool piece of content. But low number of replies would usually mean to me that it's not enough. It's not like a conversion piece of content, right? Where we can get people to buy off of it. So this is kind of the breakdown of all of the social media metrics and kind of how I think about them. And so what's cool is that these metrics really align with a really popular copywriting formula, which is AIDA, right? And so that stands for attention, interest, desire, and then action. So if I align up these metrics with the AIDA formula, basically this is what it is, right? So likes equals attention, right? Comments equals interest, shares equals desire, and then replies equal action, right? So this is the AIDA formula literally broken up into our social media metrics, right? And so we want to use these metrics to tailor our messaging, right? And so here's an example of that. So I have an account, it's called the Tinstitute, right? They're an automotive window tinting creator or like a tinting business creator, right? And so there are avatars inside of this guy's audience that we need to speak to individually, right? And so there's three kind of avatars that we look at in his account. So we have the individual tinter, so somebody that doesn't have a job yet, or maybe has a job, but doesn't have any experience tinting. We have the individual tenter that has a little bit of experience, but maybe needs some more help with their current business. Maybe they're only making a few $1,000s a month. And then we have like the individual tenter who has a business, sorry, who has experience but wants to start a business, right? And so each one of these avatars or each one of these people we have to speak to them very differently, right? And so the messaging, whenever we're creating a post for this guy's account, we want to make sure that we're targeting one of these avatars for the whole single post, right? There's this thing that happens, like it's like you try to market to everyone, right? And if you try to market to everyone, you end up marketing to no one, and it's going to be very ineffective overall. But with this, as long as you've kind of identified the avatars that exist, then you can speak the language of each one of these individual ones. And what's cool about it is that once you have spoken the language of one avatar, you tend to attract the people around it too, right? So posts where I talk specifically to the individual tenter who needs experience but maybe needs more leads, right? Like me talking about that post is also going to relate to the individual tenter with no experience at the same time, right? But the whole post, when I'm crafting it, needs to be around the individual tenter and targeted at this person. So this is really important. So that's for the Tenstitute, right? And here's an example. Like there's a guy I'm working with right now in life insurance. His name is Brandon Clark. He works with like real estate investors, business owners, 9-to-5ers with retirement assets, 9-to-5ers with no policy yet, 9-to-5ers with the policy but not structured. And so for each one of these avatars, right, we want to make sure that our messaging is lined up to each one of those. So like real estate investors for this particular offer, like we can talk to them about the BRRRR method, right? And how this life insurance policy is very similar to how they would do it in the real estate with the BRRRR method. And so if you're not really sure what I mean, go look it up, BRRRR. So that's one example, right? But for the business owners, we can talk about how doing your business through a life insurance policy can actually help you set up a retirement. Most business owners don't even think about retirement from their business, right? But that's an example, right? And then 9-to-5ers with retirement assets, et cetera, right? So we want to make sure that we're like laser focused with who we're talking about or who we're talking to in the copy, because that's going to bring the type of person that we want, right? So for example, if I'm talking about things that are relevant to a real estate investor in my copy on a post, right, what's likely to happen in terms of like what kind of leads I'm going to get? Well, if I'm using the language of real estate investors, there's a good chance that I'm going to attract more real estate investors, right? So that's why focusing on like the copy and making sure that it's angled to the right avatar is going to be really important for driving high quality leads, right? So an example of this also is like Christian Fleener. Is a fitness influencer and creator, right? This is only a couple of the avatars that we had for him, but this is one that I was thinking of. It's like Downer Dan. So Downer Dan hasn't worked out much. He got fat and is out of shape and used to be in shape, right? And then there's Looky Lou, who's like a noob who hasn't taken action on anything yet, right? And so for these, whenever I'm creating copy, right, I want to speak specifically to Downer Dan or Looky Lou, right? The copy is important because the messaging is important because what we attract is what's going to end up on that sales conversation with us, right? Or in the chat with us. So if I'm speaking a bad language and I'm attracting dirt or garbage, right, then there's going to be garbage out. Or using the right messaging and talking to the right person, the highest value client in your thing, right? Okay, so I want to decode some high performing posts that have done really well for us. So first we're going to start with Brandon Clark, who's the life insurance agent, right? So I'm going to pull up this post right here. So this one right here, it says, listen up, Dave Ramsey says you've been scammed if your entire retirement plan is a 401k, right? So who am I talking to in this messaging, right? Well, I'm talking to people who like Dave Ramsey because he's a very well-known figure in that, right? But I'm talking to people who have a retirement plan, but it's in a 401k, right? So if I have a retirement plan, it's in a 401k, I'm probably on the older side, right? I'm older. I probably worked in a company long enough to have a 401k or invest enough money to have a 401k, right? And then obviously not a lot of younger people have 401ks today, right? It's usually a lot of the older generation because they use it as a retirement asset, a retirement vehicle, right? So if I'm starting to talk about 401k and retirement planning and how you've been scammed if your retirement plan is in a 401k, like that's going to attract someone with money, right? Because they've probably put a lot of money in their 401k. So another example. So this one tax loophole will never be taxed by the IRS. Here it is. So who do you think I'm talking to in this particular post, right? Well, tax loophole will never be taxed by the IRS. So usually whenever we talk about taxes, the people that care about taxes are usually very wealthy people, right? I've never seen a non-wealthy person complain of like significantly about taxes. Maybe they talk a little bit about it, but it's not usually they complain about not having enough money. But a wealthy person is like, yo, I paid 30% of my taxes or 40% taxes last year. So I just paid out all this money to the government, right? So this tax loophole idea is great for attracting a wealthier buyer because only wealthy people will care about the tax loopholes, right? It's like I remember talking to some guy in this chat and he's like, yeah, I want to reduce my tax bill. And I'm like, okay, how do you reduce your tax? Like, what do you need to reduce it from? And he was like, yeah, I pay $2,000 a year. Now that is not the type of person we're trying to attract, right? So you will get some of the garbage, right? But in general, we want to attract the people we want. So that's for that one. So let me go to this next one. When the IRS comes knocking, here's how the ultra wealthy pay 0% taxes, right? So this one right here, this post did super well. As you can see, it's like 1,700 likes right here. We had ton, like almost 1,000 comments on this post. And so when the IRS comes knocking, here's how the ultra wealthy pays 0% taxes, right? Well, like who am I talking to with this, right? I'm talking to people that pay taxes, right? That pay significant amounts of taxes. So only people that are ultra wealthy generally pay high amounts of taxes. And then I'm saying, how do the ultra wealthy pay 0% tax? So with this, I'm attracting that like affluent buyer that is paying a lot of taxes, right? Next one. So that was for Brandon Clark. We'll go into a couple other of these right here. Here we go. Scrapyard scavenger tents 50 cars and turns it into a weekend business, right? And so this post did really well for us. Who am I talking to here? Like whenever we talk about this. So I'm talking to the side hustler, right? I'm talking to somebody that is looking to get into the tenting business, but hasn't really like gotten their feet wet yet, right? And so me talking about how he turns it into a weekend business is like, it's like the side hustle angle, right? And so there's a lot of people in the tent account that are like 9 to 5 workers. Maybe they work a normal job right now and they want to switch into doing something with their hands because they're tired of working in an office, right? And so that this post is targeting that person, right? Next. Looks like we took that one down. Let me go to the next one. Okay, cool. So here's how to turn your underutilized garage into 120K a year tenting engine in 2024, right? So who am I targeting here? Who's the person I'm trying to talk to, right? Well, I'm talking to a person that has a garage, right? That has a garage that's just sitting there. Maybe they have some extra time on their hands and they've been trying to figure out how to like do something with the garage to make money out of it, right? And so now I'm talking to this person. And who has an empty garage or who has a garage? Usually someone that has money, right? So yeah, that's kind of the ideas with these. Now we'll go into that's the Tenstitude account. We'll go into Christian Fleener. Let's see. Cool. All right. Have you always wanted a Hollywood physique, but we're never really sure what kind of diet to get there, right? So who am I talking to here, right? Who am I trying to attract? So in this particular post, I chose not to call out an avatar and it made it very wide, right? So really the people I'm trying to look for here are people who want this specific kind of physique, right? Hollywood physique, but not really sure what kind of diet to get there. So that is usually like a busy person, right? So this one did really well. And this one's a little wider angle, right? So the reason I wanted to pull this up is because with the messaging and whenever you're coming up with headlines and doing your content, right, you can be very specific with the headline right here. So you'll notice it says, have you always wanted a Hollywood physique, but we're never sure what kind of diet to get there, right? So I'm not calling out a specific audience. I'm just saying that in general. So it's going to be, I'm like casting a wider net whenever I say something like this, right? But then let's say here's another one right here, right? So drop down your body fat percentage and down in the comments. So this was like super engaging, got 3,000 plus likes and a bunch of different comments on there, right? And then the first slide after this says, let's be honest, fitness influencers are setting unrealistic body standards and I'm here to expose the truth. Right. And so this whole post is about basically the fakeness of the fitness industry and how and it's all about the posing and the lighting and all that kind of stuff. Right. But who does this really resonate with? Right. Who am I targeting here? Well, I'm targeting someone who has been trying to get in shape and they're trying to do all the stuff they can, but they don't look like someone on Instagram yet. Right. They don't have that celebrity body. They don't have that physique they're looking for. And they're wondering why they don't have it. And what I'm trying to do is to relate with them and make sure that they understand, hey, a lot of it is about the lighting and how we're kind of structuring the actual photo, and it's less about the physique sometimes, right? But you can still have that physique, you can still build it. And so like with this right here, it's like, hey, this is me with great lighting and pumped, and I'm, all together. And then here you can see he's like a little less defined. He's just kind of out running, doing his thing. So that's the thing here, right? So I'm targeting someone that is not getting the results they want, but keep looking on social media for all like the things they should be learning about, like getting in shape, right? Cool. So that is our little breakdown for all of these for decoding high performing posts. So next thing I want to talk about is just like data driven content creation. Right. And so we talked about right here, like decoding some high performing posts. And I've talked a lot about the headline and kind of like the avatar and who I'm talking to, messaging, stuff like that. And then now I want to go into this part, which is my favorite personally. So there's kind of two things I want to talk about, right? So there's hot buttons, and then there's like a core messaging pillar. And so the question that you might be asking is like, what's the difference between a hot button and a core messaging pillar? Well, the hot button, right? The example I want to give you is it's kind of like a Trojan horse, right? So I don't know if you guys know about the story of a Trojan horse or kind of like how that story came about, right? But basically, the Trojans could not infiltrate this city, right? They put it under siege. They basically like put it under onslaught, and there's this big ass gate, and they couldn't do anything about it, right? And so what they did instead is they basically sent a peace offering, and they said, hey, we're not gonna invade your country anymore. We're gonna send the Trojan horse instead, right? And this is our gift to you. And then what happens is that they actually hid a bunch of soldiers, like a lot of soldiers inside of this like not metal, like wood Trojan horse, right? As a gift. And so then once the city opened up the gates and let the Trojan horse in, then all the soldiers hop out of the horse and start massacring the city, and that's how they end up conquering, right? And so I know that's a little bit of an extreme example, but what I want to say about the Trojan horse example is like sometimes you got to wrap your message in something that people will automatically find interesting, and then once you've caught their attention, then they end up digesting the rest of the information, right? So one example of this that worked really well for us whenever I was doing as a chat manager for Jason Capital for about 4 years, 4 years, we used to talk a lot about weed on social media, right? We talk about, how weed makes you lazy, how weed makes you unmotivated, how whatever, right? We would start the message with that. And then we would talk about how they need to start making more money and they need to become more motivated to do things, and they would smoke weed less, right? And so like we would drive literally like thousands and thousands and thousands of leads because people would be so interested in the weed topic that they couldn't help but like watch it, right? And then they would get sucked into the content of us like converting them into telling about our products and services, right? So that's what I mean by hot buttons, right? So there are things in your audience right now that is a hot button that you just absolutely, no matter what, they're going to read it, right? They have to. And so we want to identify those things, and we want to weave those into our content on a regular basis, so that way we're always capturing attention and always keeping people there, right? The next thing is the core messaging pillar, right? And so these are like key aspects of your brand and offer that like must be communicated with every single post, right? And so the hot button is the thing that gets them in, and then the key messaging pillars is what is the thing that we use to persuade, right? So an example of that, right? Example of a hot button for Brandon Clark is like lottery posts, 401ks, and then anything that's like a personal story. People eat it up. So here's an example of that. So here you go. Mega Millions player wins 1.58 billion jackpot and immediately loses the equivalent of Beyonce's net worth, right? You can see here 423 likes, just like tons and tons of comments on this post, right? And so for whatever reason on Brandon's account, right, whenever I talk about the lottery, people want to watch it, right? I don't know if it's because it's older people. I don't know. I have no idea, right? But what I found is that whenever we talk about the lottery, then people listen. So this is a core hot button for us. So hot buttons are something that we can always go back to, and we know that we can capture attention and drive leads, right? And that's really important for consistent lead flow. The next thing is like this. So that was the lottery post, right? Here is give me just a second, 401k post, right? So stop losing money in your 401k, do this instead. For whatever reason, anything we put out about 401ks immediately gets a watch, right? Immediately captures attention. So we know that this is going to, with good certainty, drive leads for us, right? Another one is like personal stories for Brandon, right? So let's check this out. Should you buy a house or, life insurance? So I like to see my perspective, right? And so this is more of like story driven, right? And so these work really good for us as well, right? So story driven. So these are three examples for Brandon, right? So these are hot buttons for us. The tent account, right, is we have the underutilized garage, the math of tinting, and also personal stories. So check this out. Sick of working at an office, here's how you can earn 120K at home tinting cars, right? And so we basically break down the math in here of like how you can get to 120K at home, right? And so this works really good. And so it's like sick of working office, this is how you earn 120K at home tinting cars. So this theme works really good for us. We have the do you think you're charging too much for your tinting jobs? Read this before you're raising your prices. So this is like the math of tinting, right? People really eat this one up to see how Austin prices stuff. Here we go. This one thing helped me transform my tinting shop into a 7-figure tinting titan. This one got 888 likes and just tons and tons and tons of comments, right? So this one, right, story driven, right? This one thing helped me transform my tinting shop into a 7-figure tinting titan. So people want to know, okay, what's the one thing? What's the one thing that we were telling them? So that's for the tint. Here's an example for Christian Fleener. So anything about like without giving up the foods you love, anything about like results, spending hours in the gym, being a slave to the gym, right? So I'm not going to go into this one because I went into a few different details and this video is getting long, but you get my point right there, right, with this. So we'll go right into the path of continuous improvement, Kaizen, right? So this is a philosophy that I fully believe in, right? And just the idea of like, we want to get 1% better every single day, right? And so you're going to have to Kaizen this a little bit, right? You're going to try ideas and it's going to bomb, right? And that's totally okay. Because for as many times as you bomb, there's also going to be ones that hit and that do super good, right? And so what I want you to do here is for like treat every post and everything that we're doing here as a learning lesson for every single one. And let's just focus on getting 1% better at driving leads every single day, right? 1% better at driving leads and getting conversions every single day. And now remember, you need leads and sales. So don't be fooled by the number of leads, right? I can't tell you how many times in the past, we would just focus on like getting views and driving leads, and we would drive tons of leads, right? But if half of them are garbage or more than half of them are garbage, then it's kind of pointless for the sales team, right? So really, really important, right? Cool. So in conclusion, right, I just want to recap this. So we covered a lot of stuff in this video. Make sure you watch it a few different times. And then this is exactly the training that I give all of my copywriters for like getting better at like creating social media content, right? So understanding hot buttons, understanding, the iterative nature of this, understanding Kaizen, right? Understanding like the hot buttons and the core messaging pillars and all of these things. So inside of this or below, you'll have this document. So you have a chance to review it and be able to pull out anything you need. That's going to complete this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll chat with you very, very soon. Peace.